Yes, right back again for another episode of the Hoop Plug.
Yes, sir. And as always, rocking with you, it's your main man for Ross in the building. And I got with me my brother, my partner in crime, to the CEO, Stir Fry Ty. Tyler, how you feeling today, my brother?
I'm feeling good, bro. Jam-packed episode as always. Does Jaylen Brown have one foot out the door? Ben Simmons update. Would you be surprised if he retired? And more. Keep it locked. It's the plug. How you doing? My brother, my dog, my co-host for Ross.
I'm feeling good, man. Ramadan Mubarak to all my Muslim listeners on the show, all my Muslim brothers and sisters around the world. You know what I'm saying? It's the 4th, 5th day, something like that of Ramadan. The fasting's messing with my head already. You know, just broke my fast not too long ago, giving thanks for life, enjoying the new month and enjoying the religious time, enjoying the spirituality, all that good stuff. So, you know, can't complain, you know what I'm saying? And it's Tuesday. You know what that means. You're getting another episode of The Plug, baby. So always happy when we could give that to the fans.
Yes, my brother. And, bro, I don't know, happy Ramadan. Is that appropriate to say?
Yeah, very appropriate. I didn't want to cut you off because you wasn't wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because that's a seamless transition into JB. You know, Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, who also practices. It's crazy that you'll see him in the playoffs. I think Ramadan will still be going on, at least in that first round. He'll be fasting out there giving buckets on an empty stomach. And I think that's absolutely insane. Shouts out to JB. Kyrie is on there to that practice. But, bro, we got to talk about him because he's eligible or will be eligible for potentially a $218 million 4-year Supermax extension at the end of the season if he's named to one of the 3 All-NBA teams. Damn, that's a whole lot of money. But, bro, also it's looking like he has a good shot because not only is Jaylen Brown a shooting guard and one of the best in the league at it, but he's also qualifying as a forward this year because he spent a lot of time at that forward spot next to his brother, Jason Tatum. What that means is, I don't know, I could see Giannis, his own man, Jason Tatum, getting the nods. But there's 4 other spots. You telling me there's 4 forwards better than Jaylen Brown this year? We got to take out KD because of injuries. We got to take out a lot of cats because of injuries this year. I think he gets that nod. And then the question becomes, will the Celtics offer that? 218, $55 million a year. If I'm Boston, I'm not sure I'm doing it.
Yeah, man, I hear you. So just to break down a couple of things you said, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's funny, right? We went from the max contract days. The max contract days are over. Everything is so much bigger these days. You thought it couldn't get bigger than max? Nah, man, here comes in the super max. You know what I'm saying? And you mentioned it. I mean, Jaylen Brown's got to make the All-NBA team or an All-NBA team for him to be eligible for the super max. Can he do it? It's possible. I think he will. Now it just leaves one problem. Will the Boston Celtics be willing to foot the bill? I mean, Ty says no. I think with the core that they have, they really can't afford to break them up, man. I mean, Jason Tatum, he's the star of the future for the Boston Celtics. But, I mean, this is my thing. You can't have a 1-2 punch without the 2, you know? And we've seen in the past, especially this last finals, that Jason Tatum isn't always hot. I mean, this is the best season of his career so far, career highs and everything. But nonetheless, he's going to need his partner in crime, his front court brother. You know what I'm saying? And I made sure to say front court because, like you said, a lot of time spent at that forward spot. I don't know, man. I really think the Celtics have no choice but to pay the dude. You know, I mean, it's really hard to give up a talent like Jaylen Brown and not live to regret it, you know?
$55 million a year for a second option? How do you justify that? I mean, I know the Celtics, they got proof of concept. They just came off the finals last year. But, big but, let me be clear. I love his game. I think they'd be better. He'd be better as a number 1 option somewhere where he could get the keys to the ship. But that's not what the Celtics would be paying him to do. So how do you get there? How do you rationalize $55 million? That's $218 for Brown. You're going to spend $300 million on Tatum. I don't even know how you fill out a roster with after that, to be honest.
Well, again, that all depends on if Jaylen Brown makes the All-NBA team. If he doesn't make the All-NBA team, they're looking at a little bit more reasonable of a $36 million per year. I mean, don't get me wrong, still a lot of money. Jaylen Brown, I believe, deserves it. I think everybody in the league believes he deserves it. It's just the question for the Celtics is it worth it? I'm going to reiterate. You said it. It's a lot of question marks, right? For me, it's like you got to lock up the stars. We know in today's NBA, you can't win with one star anymore. You need a couple stars. Is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum the duo of the future? It seems that way. Like you said it, finances, money is going to play a big part into this. But, I mean, on paper, if the Celtics want to continue to be championship contenders for the remainder of these guys' primes, I think you got to keep them together, you know?
Well, that's not the only option, right? It's not just sign him or let him walk for nothing. They could trade him. You're not telling me there's 30 teams out there? I think there's 30 teams, I mean, obviously including them, that want Jaylen Brown's services now. I would love for the Knicks to trade him. But when you're talking about who he's going to compete for that All-NBA team, we're talking about guys like Lauri Markkanen, Julius Randle. I think he can beat a couple of those guys out. Now, look, Brad Stevens doesn't have a track record in Boston, but I know what Danny Ainge would do. He'd get him out of there. He would get him out of there and see who he could bring back. Yes, the 1-2 punch has worked with Jaylen Brown, and I really like it because they're both versatile wing defenders. They get to switch on everything with Marcus Smart and Al Horford in that lineup alongside them. But that team wasn't good enough to get it done. So you got to make an improvement where you can.
You got a point. I mean, hey, this is my thing. Regardless of where Jaylen Brown goes, he is worth Supermax money. That's a Supermax player right there. He has been balling in the league.
All right, y'all. It's been a minute, but it's time for a Ben Simmons update. Ben Simmons update. All right, y'all. Ben Simmons made headlines for the first time in a couple months because the recent news out of Brooklyn is the forward will not be returning to the Nets. Wow, man. Ben Simmons diagnosed with a nerve impingement in his back. Doctors were amazed to find the bones in his back were all missing. Yeah, he was literally missing a backbone. It actually explains a lot. I don't know what's going on. Are these fake injuries from the fairy tales? I don't understand, Ben. The self-reported knee soreness that came up once every other week, the refusal to get on the court and the refusal while on the court to shoot the basketball. I'm convinced at this point he doesn't even like basketball.
Yeah, it's funny. I like how you went there with no backbone. I thought you were going to call him spineless. Same message, man. Ben Simmons, where was the love of the game? I don't see any passion anytime Ben Simmons plays on the floor. I don't see any confidence. What I would equate Ben Simmons to is a little boy throwing a temper tantrum, couldn't get his way, wanted to play with everybody else. They let him play, and he was terrible. And now he's saying he's hurt. I don't know, man. Honestly, it's really depressing. It's really sad. I remember at one point in time, Ben Simmons was receiving the LeBron James comp. You know what I mean? He was receiving these high praises. And at one point in time, deservedly so. We said, this guy throws on a jumper. We've got a dangerous player right here. And I mean, Ben Simmons isn't even doing the things that we know him to do, averaging about 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I don't know if this guy's in the Illuminati or what, but a whole lot of sixes on his side.
It's crazy, man. It's been like 3 years since we've heard anyone say anything good about Ben Simmons. We're not even at the point where people are asking him to shoot anymore. They just kind of want him to get on the court. That's how low the expectations have gotten. And talk about it getting from bad to worse for Brooklyn. This trade, and I'm not talking about their outlook. They're still messing around hanging in that 6 seed. They're doing well post KD trade, post Kyrie trade. But still, what they got for James Harden is null and void. They got a pick. And I wondered, I was like, dang, Brooklyn, they got a pick for James Harden, for the James Harden-Ben Simmons swap? That's pretty good negotiating. Okay, Sean Marks. Oh, no, that's because they knew Ben was damaged goods. That's because they knew it would be a long shot for him to ever resemble what he once was. And it's coming to light now.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, the Brooklyn Nets were bamboozled, gave up James Harden for a pick. Not even going to count Ben Simmons because he's barely played, and in the time that he's played, he's been ineffective. I mean, plus, minus, all in the negative. Confidence at an all-time low. I mean, to be quite frank, like, I don't even want to watch the guy play. Like, I don't even want to critique him anymore. It's gotten to a point where it's just sad, man, and I hate to just talk down on a guy like that, but I mean, when you don't live up to your potential and you're constantly lowering the bar for yourself and really just showing no effort whatsoever on a night-in, night-out basis, I think Ben Simmons enjoys the perks of being an NBA player, but I don't think he really enjoys being an NBA player. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because in his defense, he did say, because this is a same back issue that he had at the end of the Philly run when he first got to Brooklyn. That's why he couldn't play at the end of last year, reportedly. He said it was going to be at least a year and a half before he looked and felt like himself on the court again. Is that the issue? Is that what zapped all of his confidence? Is that why he passes up on open layups and dunks? Is that why he has to be yelled at by his teammates to shoot? I'm not sure, but is no doubt he looks like a shell of himself out there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, don't get me wrong, back injuries are debilitating. Like, they will take you out. I mean, you look at dominant presence of what Dwight Howard used to be, a couple back injuries later, and you saw what turned out. Taiwan League. Nah, but in all seriousness, though, Ben Simmons could have a real injury. I guess the reason why there's not really a lot of sympathy for him is the route he took in the past. And on top of that, again, it's a lack of effort. It's a lack of passion that he shows. It doesn't even seem like he wants to be out there. But I can't help but feel for the guy. I mean, recently, splitting ways with his agent. Reports came out that him and Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, went in separate ways. They split. Ben Simmons no longer being represented by LeBron's guy. And that's crazy. Rich Paul, I saw a lot of people saying Rich Paul turned him to damaged goods and hit the highway. I don't know. I mean, I can't necessarily say that, but it's an interesting theory.
Rich might have seen the writing on the wall. This is his last contract. I got a question for you, Faraz. At this point, would you be more surprised if Ben retired after this current contract is up, or if he, at any point in the future, returned to All-Star form?
I'd be more surprised if he retired. Because at the end of the day, the lack of love for the game is there. But I can't see somebody just giving up one of the biggest blessings in life. Like, I mean, forget about the money. Being able to do something that you love night in and night out, like playing basketball. This is something that I don't know about Ben Simmons now, but I know Ben Simmons at one point when he was the best player in high school for back-to-back years in his entire career when he was 5 and 6 years old. Everybody's got a dream. Everybody says one day I want to be in the league. I want to be dominant in the league. And I think if Ben Simmons can have a conversation with 10-year-old Ben and try and snap out of whatever it is that he snaps out of, it's possible. But I don't know, man. To me, it's like you see Tyrell Terry, you see that it's a possibility. Guys opting to retire early, right? I don't know. I feel like Ben Simmons, even with everything going on, he's still got a lot left in the tank to give. I don't know.
It was a 5-year, $177 million extension from Philly. Okay, you figure he lost some of that in the holdout. I'm not sure how much he ever got back. His former agent, Rich Paul, filed a grievance. 38 the next year, about 40-something the year after. He's got 2 more years on this contract. I'm more surprised if he makes it back to All-Star form.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's still surprising.
We've seen a couple guys, I think this is a relatively new thing, where you see a athlete out there with the confidence taken away from him, like Bugs Bunny stole the juice back in the freaking movie. What's that movie called with Michael Jordan?
Fish Jam?
Yeah.
Fish Jam,
Yeah. That's really what Ben looks like out there. That's what Markelle Fultz looked like out there. Markelle turned it around, and he was never on the same path that he once was as a top 3 pick. As a starter, that opportunity passes you by because this league is always being filled with newer, better players. I know Ben's 6'10", so that should give him a slight advantage, right? But, man, I feel very confident saying that he will never be an all-star again.
Well, this is the thing, right? You're saying that this is a new thing. For those sitting at home, some know, some don't know. You ever hear about the dilemma of Nick Anderson, the mystery of Nick Anderson? How one day Nick Anderson... No. Nick Anderson, Orlando Magic, Shaq days. Yup. Him, Penny, Shaq, Horace Grant, championship bound squad. 90s, right? So long story short, this cat was him. Like, he was up and coming guy, had a couple 50 balls in the league. And we're talking about the league in the 90s, right? It's terribly difficult to score, right? This guy had a couple 50 balls, was a key player in that Orlando Magic team that made it to the finals. They lost in the finals, right? And Nick Anderson takes a lot of that blame because he missed some super key free throws, right? And prior to that, Nick Anderson was Mr. Clutch, right? Misses these free throws, basically causes the season, right? Causes the chip. As Nick Anderson goes on, you see him from averaging 20, close to 20 all-star status, right? Scoring average go down year after year after year. Wait a minute, dude can't make free throws. Wait a minute. They start taking Nick Anderson out of games at the end of games because of how low. He basically turned to a completely different guy. Like, for those sitting at home, y'all got to check it out, man. Like, the rise and fall of Nick Anderson. It's one of the most interesting spectacles in NBA history. You had a guy who was going to be an All-NBA, potential Hall of Fame guy who just, with the occurrence of a series, right, just fell off. And, I mean, got to give the Nick Anderson and Ben Simmons comp. I got to make it. I mean, you see them make a deep playoff run. You see them young, really making a difference in the league, really starting to improve year by year, slowly but surely. Ben Simmons wasn't as nice as Nick Anderson on the scoring end of things, but he could make up for it with his passing defense. And he was still giving you, I believe, like 17, 18 a game, right? But Nick Anderson was just a scorer. But the way you see the decline in these kind of guys' games almost overnight, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, a couple things. Was that Nick Anderson thing, was that late in his career or while he was still young? Do you know?
No, dude, he was young. So hold on, I'm going to tell you exactly. So it was in 95 against the Rockets. He missed four free throws back to back, right? He was picked
16 point per game guy. He had a couple 20-point seasons at that point.
He was picked number 11 in 89, so it was in his 5th or 6th season, right? And if you look at his stats prior, like there's immediate drop off. So that season where he had the 19.9, the 20, 15. And then if you look at some of the minutes and some of the things he was able to do in the minutes that he did, immediately the next season, you just see the drop down and the guy, Nick Anderson, just, man, craziness, you know? Y'all got to look it up. There's a lot of documentaries on it.
All right, I got to check that out. But the one thing I got to say is, in Markelle and Ben's situations, those were precipitous drops. Like, Ben is now a third-string center. This guy was an all-star, rookie of the year. He's a third-string center. Markelle Fultz was unplayable at a time. Like, he couldn't lift his arm up, but he was out there on the court. It was weird. Either way, guys, I don't want to be doing this. I want Ben to figure it out. Please prove me wrong. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. And before we move on, bro, I'm not going to lie. The Ben Simmons update intro music was fire, but it threw me for a loop. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh, my God. Am I in the theater? It was lit. You know what I'm saying? Moving on, man. We got to touch on New York, man. We got to touch on the tri-state area, the New York Knicks, and their undoubted star, hate him or love him, Julius Randle.
Yeah, man. It's been interesting watching him play this year. Was it better than 2 years ago? Maybe. It doesn't feel as good. That's for sure. Because 2 years ago, it was the underdog. No one expected anything out of him. Even this year, kind of no one expected anything out of him. But it was just like, it was icing on the cake, you know?
Yep.
It was bonus. I got to touch on this. Jeff Van Gundy had some interesting words on Julius Randle this year. Following that game where he had the meltdown, he's arguing with the ref. Emmanuel quickly is trying to hold him back. And Julius Randle gets in his face, tells him to get the F off of him. If there's one guy you don't want to beef with, it's Quickly. We love that guy. Him and Brunson are off limits. You could have fought with Tibbs. We would have had your back. But you can't fight with Quick, okay? This is what Jeff Van Gundy had to say. To play well in the playoffs, to play in a hard-fought, highly contested, close game, ultimately you have to have your best players have a level of poise that leads them to be able to play through rough patches of games in a playoff series and bounce back. Poise is so critical to be able to handle late game pressurized situations. This was all pointed at number 30, JR, Julius Randle, and there was a reason for that. At the end of every close-knit game where they have tried to force-feed Julius Randle, in the majority of those situations, he hasn't even gotten a shot up. And in the ones he got up, it's only luck that got it to the rim. Like the game winners, he's almost fumbling into a turnover. He's trying to square up at the last second, and he's heaving them things. So that's only a microcosm of the issue. The Knicks and Julius Randle have a weird relationship. Knicks fans have a need for top-end talent. Jalen Brunson has been awesome, better than advertised, but he's only 6'1" on a good day. We need scoring. We need offensive firepower, a guy that commands a double team, and Julius Randle provides all that. But on the other side, with his ascension to stardom, which I think it's safe to say, 2 all-star appearances, 1 all-NBA team, a soon-to-be second, he has a really good chance. He has ascended to the point where his own coach can't hold him accountable, and that's an issue. There are games, there are nights, there are many possessions where he takes off on the defensive end, and it hurts us. But Tibbs has shown, and it's not going to change now, and I'm not sure any coach, even though there's guys like Ty Lue and Jason Kidd that would try, but could hold him accountable at this point. He is in his own bubble, for better or for worse, and he is not the resilient guy you want making plays at the end of a game.
And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean Julius Randle can't go off for 57, right? That doesn't mean he can't be a bucket on the offensive end, but the thing that Julius Randle seems to lack, man, it's Julius Randle can go missing at times, especially in the playoffs, especially when you need him. I mean, again, we know what the guy does on the offensive end. We know he can get you 10 rebounds a game. Defensively lacking, and defensively, like you mentioned, takes many a night off. So although Jeff Van Gundy is throwing some shade, he's not totally incorrect about what he's saying.
Yeah, and the emotional instability of Julius Randle, right? He's got an attack in each of his last 3 games. He scored 18 points combined in each of the last 2 games. It's kind of all falling apart. And yes, it is a 3-game lose streak. And yes, just a small part of what's been an overall really good season. It's the type of issues that give you concerns when we look forward to the playoffs. You can't act like Julius Randle does at your job. You'd be fired. But he gets away with it again because of this newfound stardom. So it's a lot better when Jalen Brunson is out there to pull him back and take the reins. But he's still not quite good enough to get this team where it needs to be. So ultimately, I'm not breaking any news here, but the Knicks need to get someone better than Julius Randle, someone better than Jalen Brunson to really become contenders. And I'm waiting for that day and praying it comes soon as a Knicks fan.
Yeah. And as much as Josh Hart has been a nice addition to the squad, he was not that primary option we were talking about. So, again, prayers up for the Knicks fans, man. And hopefully they can keep it up. I mean, not in terrible spot in terms of record for playoff seeding, so we'll see what happens.
We shall. All right, y'all, that's going to do it. Another episode of the Hoop Plug in the books. Before we get out of here, I want to tell y'all about the best men's hair care grooming company in the game, EvanAlexanderGrooming.com. Be sure to plug in that promo code hoop_plug_ for 15% off at checkout.
Yes, sir. Supported them and supporting us. And as always, guys, put some flavor in your ear.
Peace.